Why I am passionate about not removing your contingencies. The Jennifer Beeston story. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys a story of what happened to me, and then you guys can make your own judgments. And we're gonna tell you guys a little bit about my real estate past. So I've been a lender for, oh gosh, feels like 100 years, 14 years, going on 15. And I've seen everything that could ever happen. I'm a very good do as I say, not as I do. Right? And I've gotten much better over that over the years. So about 5 years ago, my husband and I were looking for an apartment in New York. We were living in New York, a good chunk of the time at that point, and that was the next step for us. And we'd been looking for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And it was because we wanted something very specific. It was a very competitive market at the time. The areas we were looking, there was limited inventory. The microcosm of what we were looking at is very similar to what the whole country is going through right now, right? It's a basic supply and demand issue. So the property that we fell in love with, we saw it before it was on market, and the only way we were able to get our offer accepted was to buy it as is with 0 inspections. Okay. Now we were buying out of state for the bulk of that. So we had one time we went through the apartment. It's the initial time that we went through. Now you may be going, whoa, why? You only went through once? Guys, there's people, like 40% of people, Redfin did this study, where 40% of people are comfortable buying a house without ever seeing it now. Okay, so that one time is more than a lot of people are even getting. And the one time we walked through it, I didn't realize at the time we were gonna buy it. Like, I thought it was nice, but it wasn't until we started talking and thinking about it later that I was like, oh yeah, that's the one. So I wasn't looking for really, detailiest thing. I was going through it, rather rapidly. And to the naked eye, it was staged, it was beautiful, it had the white walls. For anyone who watches my videos, you know that I will tell you that is the recipe for overpaying, but yes, it had it all. It had it all. Okay. So our offer gets accepted. Yay! We have no inspection contingency at all. We have no contingencies. So the property closes, and I will never forget. The very first night we moved in, my husband and I were so excited. It had this cool view of the Empire State Building from the bedroom. It was sweet. And we're laying there and we hear this noise. Drip, 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 drip. Is that? And it was raining. And we're like, is that? And then we heard more. Drip, 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 drip. And then we go in the other room. Drip, 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 drip. And we go in the bathroom. Drip, drip, drip. Okay, you see where I'm going with this, right? The roof had problems. The roof had problems. Had we gotten inspections, we would know that. Thankfully, we had unpacked our pots and pans, so we were running around the house, putting pots and pans everywhere. And then we had never really checked out the property. So we start checking out the property in detail, and we're like, oh, this is one of those things where it's like, my husband and I are going to be together forever. We've survived that. We survived remodeling another house. It is stuff like that will test your marriage, because there's usually going to be someone going, you should have, how could you let me, but you're a lender, why did you know what I mean? So, fun stuff like the roof leaked. California, I'm not used to rain that pelts the side of the building so much that if you're in an 1800 brick building that water may come through. That was new to me. That was another exciting adventure. Just all the little things that you look for, like, does the heating and air conditioning work? That was super fun this first summer. When we'd bought this nice fancy apartment, and we're out at midnight at Best Buy, like college kids buying an air conditioning unit to try to install ourselves because ours wasn't working. All these little things which now I can look back and laugh at because it's been 5 years, but at the time, it was upsetting and it was frustrating and it wasn't cheap. In our case, it was a co-op, so the co-op did have responsibility for the roof and everything else, but going through that process, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, oh, well, maybe they'll try this. It's not like the co-op's just gonna give you a brand new roof. It's a lot of patching and, well, let's try this. And, it's workers, and it's it's not what you signed up for, right? But here's the thing, when you waive your inspection contingency, you don't know what you're signing up for. I'm gonna give you one more example. And in this one, I didn't end up in a bad position. And just so you guys know, on that apartment, yes, we have put a ton of money in it, trying to get it up to where we thought it was when we originally bought it. Do we regret it? We survived it. So we don't regret it because we survived it, but it was super stressful. It was stress that I didn't need. It was stress that, you know, I have a full-time job. I don't have time to be freaking out about like, hey, if we're gone for a month, do we need to worry about if the roof's gonna cave in? Like, that was not fun. Okay, last story. So I was looking at a different house in California, and this was before we bought our primary, you know, our house. And the realtor I was working with, longtime friend, really good realtor, and I'm very thankful that I had him. In this case, it wasn't as competitive as a market, and this house was a little bit of an oddball. It was a tree house, that's what I called it. It needed a remodel, but it was a tree house. And we definitely were gonna be doing some inspections, but on this one, even though I could have gotten into contract and closed it, at one point, you know, he was walking through the house with me, and I was like, you know, it's on a hill, I'm kind of nervous. He's like, okay, well, yeah, we should totally get a geo report and a foundation report, but before we even do that, let's just go take a peek. And we walked down and we went under the house because it was on stilts, and he's like, oh, Jen, I can't. Like, no, I can't. You're not buying this. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, look, see this and this and this. Now, here's the thing, that realtor specialized in selling houses on hills. So he had been through enough foundation reports, enough geological reports to know that this was going to be an issue. Thank goodness, because if I had been writing on that house and waiving contingencies, I would be dealing with a house that's moving down the hill. And that is what's happening to the house. It's not far from where we are now, and we did have a foundation report on this house, but I kind of watch it move every time I drive by. So in that case, I was very lucky because A, we would have done inspections, but also B, because I had a realtor that was savvy enough to go, this is going to be a problem. Okay. And in a market like this where everybody's waiving everything, it makes me incredibly nervous because there is stuff with houses that can go wrong. And a lot of it is not apparent to the naked eye, and it can be very expensive. There was actually a story in Business Insider this summer, last summer, and you guys can look it up. It was about last summer, and I think it came out towards the end of last year. So it was about how people were buying houses sight unseen. And it had the story of this gal who liquidated her retirement to buy a house in LA with cash. You know, she bought it based on the pictures and the realtor saying it looked good. She waived all inspections, all contingencies. Well, guess what? The house had black mold. Yeah, house had black mold. That can happen. You can have black mold, and if you don't have any inspections, you don't know about it. So she liquidates her retirement, uproots her entire life to LA, is now in a mold pit, right? So she ended up having, like, first she tried to fix it, threw away more money doing that. It was unfixable. She ended up losing half her money. Yeah, that all could have been avoided with inspections. Okay, and one last note on that. I know this is a long video, but I think it's so important. I would strongly advise that when you're looking at inspections, I would get your own. I wouldn't get the sellers unless they're recently done and your realtor is comfortable with who did the inspections. Because I have seen it where sellers, or they've gotten inspections that they've given to the buyer and they're not 100% accurate. And it could be that the inspector that did those reports is buddy with the realtor, or the seller, maybe the seller distracted them from something, but you don't want to be in a position where you're looking at the inspection, the homeowner's inspection the seller gave you, and everything looks great, and then you get to spend $65,000 replacing windows. We'll talk about that another time. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys are doing well. Questions, comments. I'm licensed in 46 states as a mortgage loan originator. I do mortgages. I would love to help you. Thanks.